People who I knew who'd never played role-playing games and certainly had never played Fallout, curse them, they picked up Fallout 3 and started playing it. Had a fantastic time, which, you know, kind of surprised me because I always considered Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 to be very much a role-player niche market. Fallout 3 kind of bridged that gap where it's like, you know what, it's easy for you to get into this game, and once we've got you trapped there, there's a lot of complexity and a lot of things for you to do, and we've got you hooked.
We wanted to make sure, when looking at the mechanics for the game, that we weren't trying to reinvent the wheel. A lot of people like Fallout 3. A lot of people like Fallout 3. So the experience should feel familiar to them. There were places where we could give them more options and more interesting sort of tactical choices to make, whether that's in the role-playing game system or in the combat system or just in general in the game. We wanted to explore the ways that we could do that.
The whole premise of Fallout is about giving the players at least 3 ways to solve each quest. Like, one of the big strengths of Fallout is it has a very detailed character creation process, and that process, right down to each individual skill, individual perks you've chosen, the game world specifically reacts to those things. That's kind of one of the design philosophies for the franchise.
I think that people are going to notice in the conversations that we try to let the player in on what the mechanics are a lot more. When skills are being called on or when reputation is being called on, instead of hiding things from the player when they don't qualify to do something, we always show the player to let them know that there's something there. By highlighting those things, the player knows, like, oh, okay, so if I read the skill magazine, or if I come back in another level, or if I take this chem, maybe I can make this check.
There's a lot of angles to this caper, complexities aplenty.
When it comes to our faction mechanics, we're a lot more transparent about when that is triggering something. So when you go to a location and someone says, hey man, you can't come in here, it'll say like NCR reputation. You know, it's like, we don't know who you are, or you've killed our officers in the past, like we're not gonna let you into this place. Those sort of mechanics, I think, are gonna be a lot more transparent than they've been in really any Fallout game.
When it comes to going through combat and just having a lot of fun with combat in Fallout New Vegas, we wanted to take what was in Fallout 3 and really expand upon it. And so we've kind of done a lot of tweaks and changes and things like that to really kind of expand the fun of sort of this blend between almost like a turn-based game, which you can do through VATS, or, you know, just being straight FPS.
If the person wants to play the game just purely as a shooter, I do think that they will find it in some ways easier. They will find the responsiveness a lot easier to deal with.
We've basically overhauled the way combat works and how damage is calculated and how targeting works. It may appear subtle at first, but I think people will appreciate how much more responsive and natural it will feel to those that actually prefer action games.
The cinematic kill cam that you get when using the VATS in Fallout 3, for example, which a number of people like, you know, watching the critical hit. With New Vegas, you can actually still get those cinematic kill cams outside of VATS if you're doing really special moves with your weapons.
VATS is an amazing system that allows you to kind of play this immersive first-person, getting shot missiles and bullets and laser beams coming at you from every angle in real time, and you can immediately go to this system, VATS, and you feel like you're in control and you can play the RPG. It's just a great kind of melding of how people play games now versus sort of, you know, hinting back to how we used to play.
Even a really skilled player, they still have to play the role-playing game's statistical system. So they have to advance their character, get more hit points, get better equipment, and then they can tackle those challenges. If they try to take a low-level character with low-level equipment into a high-level area occupied by Deathclaws or Nightkin super mutants, they're gonna die. Like, it's really, really hard and challenging. When a person comes up to a conflict, we want them to go through a thought process. It doesn't have to be a long or exhaustive one, but when they say, like, do I really want to go in there? Like, you know, they look at their stuff and they're like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. We also wanted to make sure that the mod system for our weapons was very easy to access and use. We went through a number of things where we thought, well, you got to go to a workbench and you got to do this and you have to have this skill. But when we came down to it, it's like, well, if you buy these things, you want to put them on your weapon right away and use them. So when you go into your inventory, you just look at the weapon, you press a button, it shows you the mods for that weapon, you attach them and you back out. So it's a very easy to use system, and it's mostly about just the player deciding, do I want to spend the money on this mod and do I think it'll be useful?
What we try to do in New Vegas is give each of the melee weapons that you have in the game their own particular special move depending on what your melee skill is. The golf club, for example, has its own special ability called Four, where you can just sort of tee off and then do a massive knockback attack on an opponent if you have a high enough melee skill. They're incredibly easy moves to pull off with the controls. They're just a little option that pops up, and then once you fire them off, they cost a little bit more action points than a normal attack, but the results are definitely worth it.